Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Let me turn my volume up here. All right. Welcome. How's everybody doing this morning? All right, well, we're going to get started with the System Admin Special Interest Group. The first thing that I have on the agenda is just on the announcements that conference registration is now open. So there's a link in the agenda there. I can share it to the chat too, but if you're wanting to either go to the conference or you can also, I think it's going to be streamed again this year, right? Yeah, and so you can register for that too and let them know that you're going to be watching it. Does anybody else have anything, announcements they want to share with the group? All right, not hearing any takers. So then the next thing I'm going to go on to is any questions. Do any of you have anything that you would like to ask, burning questions, problems you need help with, anything like that?
Yeah, I was wondering about password resets, like forcing staff to change their password.
What were you wondering about it?
Well, it didn't work as expected for us, so I was wondering if anyone else had done that and maybe they used the password expiration, like turning it to 0 days, if that would prompt a reset, a forced reset tomorrow morning. Is what I'm wondering.
I'm not sure, but I would hate to experiment with that.
Well, we're trying to get everybody to do their own complex passwords. And I think that's the only thing I could think of to try is to turn the password expiration to 0. So that the next time they try to log in, they'll be forced to change their password.
I've never forced everybody to change their password. We did we did use the new system preferences, or not system preferences, but in the categories, we did set all of our staff categories so that they have different password rules than our patrons.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never tried to force everybody to go through and change their existing password, but it seems to me that if I wanted to do that, we have 50 libraries, so probably what I would do is I would use a report to generate a list of who are the people at each library that have that administrative access, and then I would probably go through and make it happen. Like I would stagger it rather than force a change on everybody at the same time, because for me, if that went wrong, it would be, employees from 50 libraries all at once having something go wrong. So I don't know if you go in and just change at the patron category level.
Right, that's where I'm at.
Yeah. I'm not sure what would happen if you changed, because is there a way to set like a password reset?
I'm looking at the batch patron modification. It has a password expiration date as an option there. You want to say they all expire tomorrow or today.
Yeah, that's the way I would do it is, so I'm looking at it and I see the password expiration in days. I think if you set that to 0 days, all the passwords would expire at the end of the day today. And then tomorrow they would all expire at the end of the day tomorrow. And the day after that, they would all expire so you would have to change that to 0 and let the cron job cycle through to force that reset. And then you would want to change it to something else, because as long as that would be 0, then I think you'd be forcing people to change that you would make it so that their password would expire at the end of every day, every time they reset that password.
But yeah, tomorrow, if we did it, set it for 0 tonight, tomorrow in the morning, probably late morning or early afternoon, so everybody does get logged in, I'd change that back to 365.
Right.
And that should do what we want it to do, I think.
It might, I guess.
Well,
I guess you would be the big experiment there.
well, we thought the force new patron password reset would do that, because I've got that set to force, but it did not force anyone this morning to do anything.
So the force reset patron password, all that does is that that only affects newly created patrons. So
Okay.
and it only affects staff created patrons. So if somebody self-registers and you have that turned on, that won't cause it. That won't force the patron to reset their password the first time they log in. It only affects staff created patrons, and it only affects the very first time they log in.
Okay.
So if they already exist, it doesn't have any effect. It only affects brand new patrons. So that's the reason that isn't working for you.
Okay.
The password expiration, I'm excited to hear what happens next month when you come back and tell us how this went.
Well, what we want is that category of staff to all of them to reset their passwords. So I think it going to 0 tonight and then back to 365 tomorrow, I guess, is probably the only. I've been through reports. I've done a bunch of other work with staff patrons, so I know, who and what's happening. And once again, it's only for the category of staff. It's not for any kind of patrons or anything like that.
It's only going to work though if everybody actually comes to work tomorrow too. If anybody's off, they'll be missed in this.
Right.
So I think you should just change everybody's password expiration date till tomorrow or tonight, and whether they come in tomorrow or not, their password is expired,
And
force the reset.
Yeah, I know you don't have as many libraries. You only have you have just a couple of branches, don't you, Joel?
Altogether, we've got like 38 libraries.
Oh,
That's
38.
schools. But for right now, we have 26 public locations.
I think what I would do, like I said, what I would do is I would run a report that said, who are all the people for me, I would start with who are all the people at the Leavenworth Library, and I would run a report of the people there that have permission, and I would change the password reset date on all of those accounts. I would do it in smaller chunks. But that's because I know that if I did it to everybody at once, I would be on the phone uh, every hour, every minute of every day of every hour for the next week with people. And so if I did it like a chunk, I would only have to talk to the Leavenworth people for a couple of days, and then could go on and do the other libraries. So that would be my consideration, would be the amount of work that it would generate for me.
Well, our goal was to do everybody in staff, because it shouldn't be too tough, because it just sends them to I read a bunch of blogs here about that, and it sends them to a OPAC password change screen, and they have to do their old password and then a new password, and it's supposed to give them a link back to the staff client. That's what what is their new name? No, I can't. OpenFifth. That was on their blog.
Does it do the whole do the whole password reset process where they have to put in their card number and their email address, or does it just do the card number? Does it just work with the card number when you do that kind of reset?
Let's see. Let me dig into some other stuff. Some Bywater stuff here. The user is directed to the OPAC update password landing page where they will need to enter their username or card number, expired password, and new one. Once it has been successfully reset, they will have buttons to go to the OPAC or their staff accounts with the new credentials.
Okay, yeah, that's easier than if they have to have the email address too.
No, I don't think it does any email. I think we're going to try it. I'm going to run the report and see if I can batch mod everybody's expiration to be tomorrow versus changing it in the category for staff. And we'll see which one looks. I was just curious if anybody had done it, and no, they haven't.
Any other questions for the group? Okay, so then we're going to move on to bugs. I put some bugs in the agenda that were just pretty much they're all related to how HTML customizations and HTML pages within Koha work and how they could be better. One of the things that I'm thinking about for my session and at the conference is the stuff that I've been learning about these things. And so if you're interested, feel free to go and look at those bugs and put a comment on if you like them. I'm wondering if anybody else has bugs that are about like HTML customizations in Koha or the OPAC that you've been following and find interesting. And I will find that link to the agenda here just a second.
Chip posted it. It's the post right
Okay.
above mine.
So one of them, for example, is if you add a page to Koha using the custom pages, it puts it under the tools section. And so then every time you go to the page, it has the tools left navigation bar on the side. And you can't, like, if you made a page that's all about reports, you can't nestle it under the reports section. And it would be nice if you had that flexibility to have it be under a different section. And I think there was another bug I saw filed where they said you should be able to have parent and child pages. So you could have a page that you'd made and then a child of that page so that they could be nested under each other in the navigation, which I think would be really helpful and make those a lot more useful.
The one that I just posted is one that it's vexing. So a long time ago, it used to be that you could add HTML to notes in reports. And this is bug number 23978, and I put the link in there in the note in the chat box. So it used to be a long time ago when Koha was new, and you could add HTML to the report notes and they would render as HTML. And then the Mana database stuff was added to Koha, and somebody said, hey, we don't want those HTML notes in the Mana database because somebody could put bad HTML code into there, and it would be that would be a way for that to move from system to system. So rather than saying we're going to put a scrubber into Mana that will strip the HTML from those notes, we're just going to scrub the HTML from the notes in Koha, and the HTML in those notes won't work anymore. You won't be able to use any HTML tags in those notes. And so I thought, fine, I've got notes in HTML in those notes fields. I just came up with the help of somebody else that used to work at Bywater that isn't there anymore. We came up with a simple function that converted those notes back to HTML so that we wouldn't lose that HTML. Now, somebody has said it would be nice if we could have some HTML, and somebody else said, yeah, but we want to limit the kinds of HTML that can go in there. So we're going to put a scrubber in there that will take out all of the things that really make the HTML useful. You can do paragraphs and line breaks, but we're going to strip out any inline CSS or any tags or anything else that isn't just really basic HTML so that people can add line breaks and format paragraphs. I don't even know if this new version will do a heading. So HTML is being brought back to those notes, but it will just be really limited HTML. And so I've already checked it on the test system, and all of my HTML notes are going to break. And so now I need to figure out a new workaround for how to get the HTML that I want into the notes on my system. So that one I think is, and I understand there's a security concern there, but it just is, it's just more work for me to break Koha the way I want it to be broken. So.
That's intriguing to learn because that's been on my radar big time. I'm like, why can't we format these notes at all, essentially, in reporting? And I was going to do the same, pretty much the same thing, but throw in some JavaScript to allow, to allow the HTML to parse again. But it's good to know that that's being worked on to some degree.
Well, if any of us want to say anything, this bug is signed off. I don't think. Oh no, that's a different one. Which one am I looking at? This one, 23978 has been pushed to stable, so it's in master right now. So if we want to say anything else about it, now would be as good a time as any before it's pushed to, before it's final in 2025-11.
She was scrubbing inline CSS.
Yeah, I tried that, and it was scrubbing everything. I mean, if it would look at a tag, if you put in a tag that's like a paragraph tag, when you save it, it just strips out everything except the P. So
That
I don't know
seems
what the filtering is doing. It's
seems safer than, like, I could maybe see not allowing a style tag that could affect the whole page, but inline.
I don't know. It wasn't my decision, and I wasn't aware of it until it was done. I think I've got a workaround worked out. I'm not going to. I'm reluctant to tell people about the workaround because that's every time I come up with a workaround for some of this for some of the security stuff. Somebody says, "Oh, somebody found a hole. Let's plug that hole too." So I think I've got a workaround, and maybe I'll just share it with the people that are interested. And so, yes, for those that are interested, it's george@nekls.org.
Uh, okay.
I can share my screen and show you what that does
Okay,
if you
that'd
want
be
to
cool.
see.
Jason, yeah, you have something that's for the give ability to add context to custom pages, which was the kind of moving.
So this is a custom page that I built for reports, and I didn't want it to have the tool stuff. So if I disable my JavaScript, you can see, like Juliet was saying, everything, anytime you make a custom page, it's giving you the tools nav bar because everything lives under tools. So that JavaScript just fixes the breadcrumbs. So I'm pretending it's nestled under reports. Of course, it's still actually under tools up here. And then it just it replaces the nav menu with whatever you put in the code. So I just put like a little snippet of the report submenu there, so it makes more sense. But yes, I agree. And I like that bug. I put that bug in. So I would love to see the ability to pick where a custom page goes in the system.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your solution. Does anybody else have a bug that they want to share with the group, get some eyes on, or anything like about bugs that haven't been filed? All right, the next thing on the agenda is reports. Does anybody have a cool report they'd like to share with the group, or questions about a report that they are trying to get to work? Nothing? All right. Anything else that you have that you want to talk about? Issues that you're having, things you're excited about coming up in the next release, worries that you have about things coming up in the next release?
We've been having issues ever since we updated to the Cloudflare. All of everything we use to connect through API, including OAI PMH, died. So it can't break through that. They're asking for IP addresses. Does anybody know if that'll be enough?
We only had, when our support vendor Bywater switched to Cloudflare, one of our vendors thus far get partially blocked via API. It's interesting. It wasn't all their API calls. It was just a specific set of them. And I think they supposedly already had the IP address whitelisted, but the vendor was able to give the pass along the Ray ID that that comes along with the Cloudflare error.
Yep,
Like
saw that.
and then that's apparently very informative in terms of when it happened and from where and how they could whitelist it.
It seems like they got one, but we have a bucket, a bundle of them, and for some reason they can only get about half of them to work. So I just wondered if anybody else was having issues with that, or if we're just nice and stubborn.
The big issue we had was with our Z3950 connections. And it was really, really a lot of work to get those working again. And I'm not 100% sure why.
I haven't heard any issues on our side with that, but it's probably related at least.
For us, once they got our Z3950 server working again, it works. The main thing that we use that for is our statewide ILL system with Autographics Share It. And once we got Share It working, then I went and tested from logging into Southeast Kansas Library System and from Central Kansas Library System, and their connections to our Z3950 server stopped working. And I'm not 100% sure if those are resolved yet or not, Ashley and Jason. But when it seems like fixing one thing broke another was part of our issue.
Yeah,
Our,
we
our
still
share,
haven't caught up.
I was gonna say our share it didn't have any problems when we switched over. We just had them update their end and it worked.
I'm getting hits on your server, George, but I also noticed that your Z-Target has something weird in there, so I don't know. We haven't cut over to Cloudflare yet because I have libraries still dragging their feet on updating their connections. So I'm glad that you guys went first, George.
Well, and we're not done. That's I did change yours. It looks like I changed your target for NEKLS. I can do that. You guys can't. Jason and I are like 100 miles apart. I have access to his system. He has access to mine. So I did make that change on yours, but I don't think I made it on Central's. But in order for Southeast to connect to our Z3950 server, we had to switch to a IP address rather than a host name. When it's just the host name, it wasn't working, Jason.
I'm seeing the same thing like between my test server and my live server. I can't talk. Like I can't query my live server with my test server, which has, I don't know. I guess in the larger picture, it's sort of frustrating because we're happy to share our records if we can, because I feel like that's part of the community. There's a page on the wiki where you can share your Z-Target information. And since this change has been happening, we've been slowly losing our Koha friends as Z-Targets. So yeah, I don't know if it's going to be possible to keep doing that in the future, but it was a nice sort of community effort to generate and share records, I thought.
I'm logging into Pathfinder right now to see if I can do a search from Pathfinder. Nothing found. There should be at least 800 results on that search, and nothing is found when I use the normal next search catalog Z3950 target. But that same target works just fine for Share It, so I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, I just realized we had your Z39 target in our system and I looked at it and we're also getting nothing found and I updated it to .io. I'm assuming that would be a necessary step.
Yeah, that hasn't made any difference, so
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. If I gave you the raw IP address, it'd probably work, but I'm not sure I should do that. Yeah, especially partly because the email from Bywater said that this was just a temporary fix. So our records are crap anyway. You don't want our records. So.
We were scheduled to do our Cloudflare on Friday morning, and now I'm thinking, no, not Friday. I'm not breaking. We use Patron Point, which uses API, and I'm not breaking my notices for the weekend.
Friday's probably the worst day.
Friday's not happening.
I will say, so far, we use Patron Point. So far, it
Yeah.
hasn't broken for us.
Okay.
So far. For notices, some notices, and verify. Not Patron.
Still gonna wait.
Yeah, no, Friday is not the
Friday,
best day
no.
to, yeah.
Yeah. I actually have a rule in the department, and our general IT is no changes on Friday afternoons, unless it's an absolute emergency. But hearing about the Cloudflare issues, I'm thinking it just became not a Friday event.
I made the mistake of changing our membership expiration notice last Thursday, and I forgot to check the box that told it was HTML. So all of our membership expiry emails went out over the weekend with HTML in the message. So yeah, Friday or the Thursday before a holiday is probably not a good idea to make a big change.
Day before vacation is the day to make a big change and leave everybody else to deal with it.
Right. That's what we did. We went on Cloudflare the day before I went on a 2-week vacation. So
That kind of
All
stuff
right.
is great for reminding your superiors just how important you are to the organization.
Yep.
So we might be experiencing the C39 Cloudflare thing. I'm looking into it now, but I was wondering if anybody here was experiencing this other bug that we started running into. It's specifically people with Aspen and Koha. It's supposed to block expired patrons from doing any kind of circulation, anything to do with like circulation, like put anything on hold and all that stuff, checking out materials. But for some reason, it's not blocking patrons from placing holds when they have an expired account. Has anybody run into this one?
Not
If
yet,
it's-
but I'm definitely going to test it. Now that you've mentioned it.
Yeah, if it's affecting us, nobody's reported it yet. So
Okay.
I actually
Yeah.
don't mind if they place holds and hold comes available, and it encourages them to renew their account.
You know, I thought that was a good thing too, but apparently there's enough because so what we're doing is because of like budget cuts and stuff like that, we've needed to expire a lot of patrons that don't live within the county. So people who live in like New York or, you know, we have one person who lives in Japan apparently, and I don't even know if they have access to our stuff, but all those people that don't live here are being expired and then they're going to be deleted. Messaging has been going out, but you know, of course, some don't read emails from us sometimes, and they call us later and or they're like, why am I expired? Why am I not able to put anything digital on hold anymore? I'm like, there's a message on our site. But yeah. But this one is what this one is mainly doing is the patrons that live in like the next county over. This is mainly them. They're being blocked. They have been expired. But when they go to their account online, they're able to place items on hold, come into the branch and get stopped at the branch. And no matter what they do, they can't get a card because, you know, they don't live in the county.
We charge for non-residents, and we always have. So,
Right.
and we tell them to complain to their county commissioners about how much it costs to get a library card in our county. So,
you know, I might just bring that up then as a workaround. We don't have hoopla anymore, so they shouldn't complain too much.
Yeah, our county is a higher property tax base than all the surrounding counties. So we have a lot of these really McMansion communities right on the edges of the county.
Right.
And they find a lot of times they'll buy some little tiny piece of property in our county so that, oh, I'm a taxpayer, and avoid paying the higher rates. Well, they still get their big house and they use our schools and all the services of the higher tax base county.
Right. And well, and that's the thing. We don't even like, if it's a PO box in our county, we still kind of count that just because, you know.
Yeah.
Who cares really? Well, we care apparently, but yeah, no, there are just some people that are
They're cheap. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But we're a no income tax state entirely. So only property taxes and sales taxes. So
Right.
it's all local.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's been a little bit of a mess. I wondered if anybody had like anything they wanted to share about this bug particularly. I saw George like unmute and then mute again. So I don't know if I interrupted you.
It wasn't about the bug. It was about just the issue of tax patrons versus non-tax patrons. But that you see that affects different places in different ways.
Hmm.
Does the API, again, well, you know, the Aspen connection follow the blocked expired patron OPAC actions config in Koha? If you have that set properly and it just doesn't care. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, at least I put it out there now, so.
Well, what I'm
Do you-
seeing on this bug at least is that it does appear to be pushed to master for
Okay.
2511. So that might be something worth putting a note on this bug and saying, could this be backported to 2505? Might solve your problem when we upgrade to 2505 if it's possible to backport it. Usually that's the way that the patches like this work, is they get pushed to master first, and then people will, if you ask, they'll try to push them back as far as they can.
I know Wally is experiencing this right now as well since May.
We're having issues with people that we've restricted their account with the manual restriction, and they're still being able to log on to our computers using TBS, even though that was being blocked through them. And I think it's a TBS thing that they messed up, but I think that, I don't know if that's related, but it's also really frustrating for us because like we needed to restrict all of our youth cards until they got a new release signed by their parent. And so if we can't stop them from getting on the computers, that's a problem. We've got it fixed for some of it now, but
Do they use
I'm
a
not,
SIP
yeah.
connection for
I think it's a SIP
SIP?
connection.
Yeah, the problem is with what I found with the restrictions in SIP is, and we had to add a little JavaScript so that, excuse me, the restriction note or comment can only be, and we changed it to a drop down so that they had to put in a very specific, they couldn't just, you know, make up whatever, misspell the restriction. They, you know, it had to be very specific, like conduct, you know, they're barred for conduct reasons or for, you know, so it was a very specific. And then the message that the SIP server sends would be very specific to match against in the rules we use in Visionware. But, and it was tricky to get restrictions to apply in SIP because of that it was looking at an open text field that you could put whatever you wanted in there, and we that just wasn't going to work. It had to be very specific. And so changing the restriction to just offer drop down, pick one of these restrictions was what we had to do. And we caught that at migration. So you might look into what messages the SIP server is sending.
Yeah, we know
And that's
that
the only
if we-
place that shows up is in the messages.
Yeah, we were able to have it if we started a restriction with the word suspended or restricted, then
Mhm.
TBS was interpreting it, but now they're not. And so
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's a TBS thing, but
Could be.
that would be helpful because people forget to start it with restricted.
Yeah, if it's relying on a staff member who works 8 hours a week to remember exactly how to do that, it's going to fail. And so we
Sure.
just changed it so they didn't have to remember. They just had to pick one.
Sure.
Yeah.
Juliet, I think you were muted.
Thank you very much. I'm wondering if we're good to end a little early. I do need to go touch base with somebody. So unless anybody has one last minute thing they want to bring up. All right. Thank you all for the great discussion. I look forward to talking to you next week or next month. Bye.